Yo, 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 what's going on? It's your man Chris B. Back again with another video. Tonight, I wanted to talk about one of our civil rights leaders, one of our civil rights icons, one of our great Americans of the 20th century. A man that inspired generations of people to stand up for what they believe in. And I personally admire his personal journey from what he went through to where he had become, where he had went to. It's only a shame that in the end, these people, like our civil rights icons, realized that it was up against a dilemma that none of us could ever imagine. You know, it saddens me to see how, you watch some of the last videos of Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King, you see, I ain't gonna say defeat, but you see that the only path forward is for you to become a martyr. And in our community, the Black community, I think that's an issue that we had to deal with back in them times. That's why, me personally, I identify more with the brothers and sisters that fought in the civil rights movement than I ever did with anybody from slavery. To me, that's a slave mindset. If you still worried about slavery in 2024, I ain't gonna say something's wrong with you, but I question your mental acumen. Because see, the truth of the matter is those people didn't fought and died and bled and sweat for any of the progress that they got for you to remember that you was a bootlegging coon in the eyes of white society. And that in itself should give you pause to remember your history, Black people. But I wanted to talk to you about Malcolm X in terms of not when he was really radical Malcolm X, but when he went through everything that he went through and he had come to the end of his journey, only to realize that the people that he had put faith in betrayed him. And I think that's important because Black people, sometimes we got to understand your enemies look like you. They look like you, whether you choose to believe it or not. But I just wanted to give y'all a glimpse in this video of how Malcolm X had changed, but he was still willing to go in the belly of the beast and talk to the white people of that time to where we don't even understand. Our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents, they understand what these Black folks had to go through at that time. But many of us don't. We can go in front of white people and say what we want to say. But back in them times, it was dangerous for a Black person to get in front of white people and say what they wanted to say. But here we go.
They're not talking about churches. We're talking about the Socialist Workers' Party.
Just because you speak somewhere doesn't make you that. You speak to the public, and you speak on any platform.
Oh, I don't, Malcolm.
And I speak to the public, and I speak on any platform.
I'm afraid that's not the case,
If speaking on the socialist platform makes me a socialist,
it's fun. Every good thing in this world started with a dream.
Then when I speak in a Methodist church,
communist platform.
I was in Selma, Alabama last week speaking in Martin Luther King's church.
Does
that make me a follower of Martin Luther King?
No,
your line of reasoning, sir, doesn't fit me.
Well, I'm just saying that I was asked a question by Stan, and I think that at the moment the nationalist movement has no place to go. They're floundering, and they're putting out lines everywhere. And there is an alliance in the general Harlem area between some of the Peking-based communists, the Progressive Labor Movement, and some of the others, the Bill Epton crowd. Bill Epton is a self-confessed avowed communist. You'd agree to that, wouldn't you, Malcolm?
I know nothing about what Bill Epton's political philosophy.
You would agree to that, right, Malcolm? They always get you to try to agree with their propaganda, even back then. See, sometimes I feel like a kindred spirit towards Malcolm X because I used to hang out and play at that Audubon Theater where he was assassinated. I know that's not a good thing to say, but before I even knew about Malcolm X, I used to hang out at that Audubon Theater right by there when I lived in New York. So it was kind of like a kindred spirit thing going on with me, where ancestrally I connected to Malcolm X. Let's continue.
Bill Epton, in my opinion, is one of the militant leaders in Harlem. Now, what his political beliefs are, I think that he has a right to them.
I didn't say he didn't have a right. I'm just saying what he is.
Well,
and he has stated to me personally. I've interviewed him. He told me he's an avowed communist.
So, whatever they are, he has a right to.
He'd like to see the system of ours completely junked as well. All I'm saying is that there's a lot of warfare.
I think you'll find that a lot of the children that are out there in Brooklyn are on the rampage against the segregated school system here in New York City.
May I speak?
And King and some of his followers in Alabama right now are fighting against the same system.
But you don't let other people speak, Mel.
Well, say your words.
I'm trying to. You would be kind enough to let me speak.
Go right ahead, Mr. Hall.
Well, at any rate, they're floundering now, and there's a lot of internecine warfare going on in the Harlem section, and most of the movements are small and splintered, and there are splinters of splinters, and I suppose only the future will tell which one will emerge victorious and perhaps claim the most members. I would make a prediction, and I think we could come back a year from now, Stan, and I think you may find Malcolm preaching a completely separate doctrine of leading some other kind of a movement.
Well, you know, one of the best compliments that Dr. Hall here can pay me is just the things that he says. When he begins to pat me on the back, I'll be worried.
Well, I'm not patting you on the back. I told you up in Boston that
when you
give a little time and you'll be preaching a new line, and you are.
When you begin to pat me on the back, I'll be worried. When you begin, people of your profession, who make a profession out of dealing with groups in this country, when you begin to pat me on the back, then I'll be worried, sir.
Yeah. Notice how Malcolm turned these liberals up, even back then. The liberal white man is going to try to tell you what's going on in your own community. And that was the way of the world back then. But brothers like Malcolm and everybody else stood up against that. It was a shame in some ways to what they did after the civil rights movement, because they knew they had to give Black people equal rights under the law. So what they did was give us white women and drugs. They overflooded the cities with drugs. So the conscious, righteous thinking brothers like Malcolm, Martin, any other brother that was thinking logically, automatically was drowned out by Pookie and Ray Ray, because they was now the kingpins and they had the money. You see what I'm saying? some brothers back then even like showed me the money. So even you trying to come with a righteous, conscious, thoughtful logic of dealing with things in the world that was going on back then in a positive way towards the black community, they would tell you, nah, nigga, I ain't listening to you. Bump you. So them niggas went by the wayside. Them brothers went by the wayside. But let's continue.
Now, I would advise you, if you think that nationalism has no influence whatsoever, the Nationalists, the Organization of Afro-American Unity, are having a rally at the Audubon Ballroom on Broadway.
You mentioned it earlier. You're getting in a couple of.
I'm going to mention it again. That I wouldn't come on the program and not mention it, because one of the most difficult things for nationalists to do is to let the public know what they're doing. So we're having this rally at the Audubon.
I know the public is engaged in a vast conspiracy against you.
You're going to make me mention it 4 or 5 times. We're having this rally. We're having this rally at the Audubon Ballroom this coming Sunday at 2 o'clock, and people just like you who consider themselves experts on nationalists are given front seat invitations. And I would advise you, since it's your profession to know what nationalists and other so-called extremists are doing, to come and be our guest. Now, one thing I'd like to point out to Dr. Hall, whenever you find black people,
Dr. Malcolm.
Well, you sound like an expert on something. I thought you were a doctor. Whenever you find the condition that black people are confronted by in this country, being permitted by the government to exist so long, the condition in itself is extreme. And any black man who really feels about this situation that our people are confronted by, his feelings are extreme. You can't take a cough syrup and cure somebody who has pneumonia. And the black people are becoming more extreme every day. I was in Alabama a couple of weeks ago before I went to England, down there with Dr. King and some of the others who are trying to just register and vote. Now, I'll tell you frankly, with King is supposed to be the most moderate, most conservative, most loving, most endorsed, most supported.
Now, the word is responsible, but go ahead.
Okay, responsible to the white power structure. To me, when white people talk about responsible,
it's a responsible American. That's
when people like you usually refer to Negroes as responsible, you mean Negroes who are responsible.
Now, see, they definitely tried to sow discourse between Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. Now we know Martin Luther King was on Turn the Other Cheek, and we know Malcolm X was on By Any Means Necessary. So to keep them two black men apart was a necessity for the powers that be. Do you understand what I'm saying? They had to keep these two men apart, not for seeing things on a level playing field, even though they came at it from a different angle. And by result, you was able to isolate the two, so what it made it easy for assassination, in my opinion. Like I said before, don't unalive me. If I go away, I did not die of my own accord. Let's continue.
In the context of your type of thinking. So getting right back to Dr. King, anytime you find a person who goes along with the government to the degree that Dr. King does, and still Dr. King's followers, children, are made to run down the road by brute policemen who are nothing but Klansmen, and the federal government can step in and do nothing about it, I will guarantee you that you are producing extremists by the thousands. Now, when I was down there, they wanted me to speak to the press, but didn't want me to speak to the church or the children or the students.
Let me ask you,
and it was
Malcolm,
the students themselves that insisted that I speak that gave me the opportunity
Malcolm,
to speak.
how do you think that's going to be changed? How? I mean, no, I know you're talking about these children being made into extremists, but how is that situation going to be changed? Do you think by warfare?
It's not going to be changed by making believe that it doesn't exist to the intense degree that it exists, and it's not going to be changed by putting out polls like Newsweek magazine did last week, implying that Negroes are satisfied with the rate of progress. This is deluding yourself. And my contention is that white people do themselves a disservice by putting out these kind of things to make it appear that Negroes are satisfied when the most explosive situation racially that has ever existed in this country exists right now. And all of your so-called responsible leaders, when they speak about the situation, they say everything is in check. Yet every day you find Negro children becoming more explosive than they've ever been before.
You're not answering my question. You're avoiding it. I asked you, how is it going to change? Is it going to change through extreme behavior? Let's call it extreme reaction. In other words, you are going to react extremely to a situation that you don't like. Now, how extreme can your reaction be?
Well, sir, when Russia put missiles in Cuba, the only thing that made Russia get her missiles out of Cuba.
Now, when we keep kicking you in the face, why don't you want to take it anymore? When we keep whooping your ass and locking you up and doing whatever we want to do to you, why do you want to stand up for yourself, boy? Why? You see what I'm saying? For you race baiters of these days, these are what the real dudes have to go through every day, targeted all day, and a society and a systematic government that backs them up. At that time, 1965. You know what I'm saying? So some of you race baiters of this day don't have a leg to stand on because this was the real racism that was going on at the time. How white folks could talk to you how they wanted to talk to you. You think white folks can talk like that this day and age? You done bump your head.
Cuba was when America pointed missiles right back at Russia.
Are you suggesting revolution?
No, I'm saying this, that when you respect the intelligence of black people in this country as being equal to that of white, then you will realize that the reaction of the black man to oppression will be the same as the reaction of the white man to oppression. The white man will not turn the other cheek when he's being oppressed. He will not practice any kind of love of a Klan or a citizen council or anyone else. But at the same time, the white man is asking the black man to do this. So all I'm saying is, I absolutely believe the situation can be changed. But I don't think it can be changed by white people taking a hypocritical approach, pretending that it is not as bad as it is, and by black leaders, so-called responsible leaders, taking a hypocritical approach, trying to make white people think that black people are patient and long-suffering and are willing to sit around here a long time or a great deal of time longer until the problem is made better.
Let's go back to the phone.
Oh,
When's contact
number?
Judson 26405. This is Contact. You're on the air.
Hello, Malcolm.
Yes?
The Ku Klux Klan should get you.
Thank you very much.
Let me point something out to this lady. I'm invited to
Malcolm, the Ku Klux Klan should get you. And this is the way these white folks talked back then. So this is what the brothers and sisters of the civil rights movement fought through and fought for us to have progress and equal footing on, truth be told, our land. That's the greatest trick that they ever told to you, that this wasn't your land and you was from Africa and we brought you all the way here. Truth be told. Many black folks are waking up to that, but it's still a lot of other of us that think that they brought you from a distant land and smacked you dead here. What they really didn't tell you is that when they got here, you had a sophisticated society that they really couldn't comprehend that how advanced that y'all was. That's why they call it the New World. But it's really the old world of how we used to live, way before they inhibited this land. Black people of today, we do not know our history. They can go back and forth with recorded history, but you better always account for the time before recorded history, recorded known history. That means what they didn't write down because they didn't understand it. And that's right where we come from, what they didn't understand, because we gave it to them. And a lot of brothers know the truth. A lot of white folks know the truth. But it's not beneficial for them to tell you that. No, I know. It's a bit much for you to comprehend, my peoples. But brothers like Malcolm, he went through epiphany. That's why you cannot idolize man. You can't idolize man. You know what I'm saying? He went through a situation where he ended up in prison. And sometimes when you in those situations, you tend to lean to something more positive if you can, if your will is that way. And for him, the Nation of Islam and Elijah Muhammad was his salvation. So of course he felt dedicated to them. But as he found out, you cannot idolize man like God. Fools get it twisted every day. You are God-like, not God. Okay, I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it like Umar. You are God-like, not God. You are God-like, not God. You are God-like, not God. They be giving Umar hell about that one. He says shit 3 times. But the point is, you are not God. You are God-like, but you're not God. And for some men to think that they're God, that is to go against the essence of God. But with decadence, that's what that portrays.
To Mississippi next week. I'll be going to Mississippi next week. The Ku Klux Klan will have all the opportunity it wants to get me. I was in Alabama last week. They had an opportunity then. You don't always have
the studio during this last part of the debate, and he's not here to answer it.
Mr. Hall answer.
Can Mr. Hall answer it? I didn't quite understand your question. Can you quote that again for us?
Yes. Louis Lomax says that none of the rumors about Muslims receiving help from outside, communist or segregationist sources, has proved true. And I'd like to know what they think about this.
I would agree with Mr. Lomax's statement on that. I think that's an actual statement. I'm not so sure that is applicable to other militant groups in the Negro community, but I think it's applicable to the Muslims.
I'm not sure.
that they don't get any help from outside sources.
She was talking about outside communist or segregationist sources.
Yeah. Do they get any help from inside segregationist sources?
I would
Now,
doubt
you're the
that.
expert.
I would doubt that very much. I have no evidence of it, and neither do you. And if you do, then
I'm not saying
put
that I
up,
do.
Malcolm. But you're implying. You're a very fly implier.
You think because you give me the impression all of a sudden that you're a protector of the Black Muslim movement.
Not a bit.
When,
Not a bit.
When it comes to rallying them against the Black nationalists, because you know that the Black Muslim movement is in a bag and has no place to go.
I'm the one, just to show you how faulty your logic is. Let me speak. Just to show you how faulty your logic is, I arranged for the Saturday Evening Post story, which you have praised with your own mouth tonight as the best thing ever written on the Black Muslim.
Not because you arranged it.
I arranged
It's the best, not because you arranged it.
I arranged
that
it.
That doesn't make it best. It's best because Aubrey.
I like how Malcolm told them, not because you arranged it. Somebody else came up with a fucking idea. You just arranged it. He said, I'm all, okay. He gave me this idea, I'm gonna put it together. But then all of a sudden you want to take credit for it. Man, don't that apply to today? And so much so. That's why I tell black people today, I tell black folks all over the world, you know what I'm saying? We have to get off the mental and digital plantation that they have us on. The more and more and more you attach yourself with slavery and everything that they then tells with that, the more you forget your greatness before that, before recorded history. That's what you need to understand. That's what needs to be important to you. You know, like I said before, I've said this plenty of times. Okay, if you trace your personal history, your personal roots back to your slave master and his family, so be it. Salute to you. Me, I used to tell brothers all the time, I came on top of the boat while you niggas came under it. When I was a kid, I ain't really know what that meant. But what it really meant is I've been here. Whether you choose to believe it or not, I've been here for more than they say we have. And that's something you folks are going to have to deal with. We've been here. And more black people are finding that out. I don't shout out or begrudge my brothers and sisters in Africa. That is the motherland. But I'm from here. There's a lot of evidence that shows a lot of the same technology that was in Africa was in the Americas long before they wanted to tell us about it. Our idea of time, space, and where we are in this world may be off. We may have no clue to what really is going on. And that's a real possibility. Whose idea of what time it is, daylight saving, spring forward, fall back, the months, the calendars, everything that's going on. Whose real idea is that? And that's the real idea of life. We should proceed. I'm of the idea that maybe that's not what's really going on. But I do know this. Any black person with the idea of that you're going to try to spark the masses, you become a problem.
Mr. Hall is saying that he arranged for it to be written because he thought it was valid and
What
valuable.
he arranged, what he did is immaterial to me. I'm not commenting on.
You never want to louse up an argument with facts, Malcolm.
I'm not commenting on what you did. It's immaterial to me.
But you said it was a wonderful
I'm
piece.
saying that what Aubrey did. Aubrey is the one who did the piece. You can arrange for Rockwell to write a piece.
Aubrey came to me.
You can arrange for
because he
Rockwell
knew
to write
that
a
I
piece.
could get the story told in the best fashion.
You can arrange for Rockwell. You can arrange for the Klan to write a piece.
No, I could not.
So that
I could
doesn't.
not.
What you can arrange doesn't impress me.
Malcolm, you know perfectly well that I could, and that's just a smear.
You could, sir. You're a mercenary. No, you're a professional. You said that yourself. That's why I called it down.
Can we go on to our next call? No.
I like him when he talks this way because he exposes himself.
No, I'm exposing you as a mercenary.
Here we go,
An
fellas.
opportunist.
The next call time. Here we go. This is Contact. You're on the air.
I'd like to direct a question to Malcolm X.
Go ahead.
I've heard him on a newsreel say that Charlie's enemies are his enemies, and this was supposed to refer to the white man as Charlie.
Charlie is the Ku Klux Klan and the White Citizens Council.
Right.
And white people who practice discrimination and segregation against black people.
Right. But I'd like to ask you something about what you mentioned about aid from Red China.
I've never mentioned anything about aid from Red China. Ask Dr. Hall. He's an expert. I think he'll even have to agree to that.
May I ask you if...
You see how they try to come in and lie Even to this day, people call in the people's shows and they call in with, you want to come in with a lie. You know, they try to come in Malcolm in this ways, in many ways, like this. You support this or you support that. Try to demonize you. That's the one of the main tactics that they try to do, and they do that through their media and everything else, to demonize you first until you become the ultimate threat, to where all the demonizing they can do ain't gonna hurt you, so they take you out. And I hate that they did that to all our great Black leaders of back in the day.
If the aid to fight Charlie came from the Red Chinese, would you accept it? And you said from anybody.
Well, that doesn't specify Red China. I said this, that when you're in the den of a wolf and a fox comes along and asks you for help or offers to help you, you'll accept help from any source available against that wolf.
Right.
Yeah, but
This doesn't mean that you love foxes.
Did they specify?
It doesn't mean that you love foxes.
Did they specify when they asked you the question whether
I don't
you
think they
accepted?
said the Chinese, Communist China.
They did.
If I recall, and I could be wrong, but if I recall, I don't think they said specified Communist China. But although let me say this about Communist China. China is a nation of 700 million people. Physically, they exist. Physically, they exist. I don't go along with the American reaction of pretending that.
See, what Brother Malcolm didn't understand at the time was that the world powers that be was going to prop China up as one of the new world superpowers. They like what Mao Zedong did with the his policies that he implemented of socialism and complete dominant control by the government. The global powers that be, they actually loved that. They loved it. So they wanted to try to model that and model China. So a decision was made to prop up China. And that's what Malcolm didn't understand back then. You know what I'm saying? How could he? He didn't have the internet.
700 million Chinese don't exist. When I was in Africa during the summer, everywhere I looked, I saw Chinese. It's only when I get back to America that I don't see any Chinese. I just don't think it's mature to pretend that 700 million people don't exist.
That doesn't happen to be U.S. policy to pretend that they don't exist. Now, can you just say things that aren't so?
No, well, I mean,
the United States is well aware of Red China.
She certainly is. They just detonated some nuclear bombs over there. Plus, her forces have the United States soldiers tied down in Saigon.
Well, see, where did they get the technology from, Malcolm? You know what I'm saying? See, a lot of people think they developed that technology on their own. No, they got it from Americans. Just like Russia before with Sputnik and everything in the space race. And later on with the arms race. We have to prop up everything. That's why I don't understand how people talk about our military like they do. Like we'll just sit back and let other people invade us like that. If push comes to shove, like with other countries, we may be having an invasion at the border, but if the worst comes to worst, they'll blow something off their map if they have to, or shut off their lights. That's just how our government works.
She'd have to be well aware. She has half of your forces tied up. Well, you'd be crazy not to be aware of her existence.
North Vietnam,
but at the same time, you're trying to give the public impression over here, the people, the impression over here that they don't exist.
You're just saying that that's not the case at all.
They're human beings, the same as you and I are.
So you of course espouse recognition of Red China and admission to the United Nations.
Many of your senators in Washington, D.C. espouse the same thing. I think most intelligent, progressive people who are up to date in their thinking have finally reached intellectual and political maturity to the point where they feel that when you got that many people on this earth, you better recognize them and deal with them as human beings, and then they will deal with you as human beings. If you say that you shouldn't deal with them because they are communists, why deal with Russia? Or if you say that you shouldn't deal with them because they fought United Nations forces in Korea, then why deal with Shombi? Shombi also fought United Nations forces in Katanga. If you use the same yardstick to measure these people all of the time, I think you'll end up with better results.
All right, let's go on to our next call. Our WIS contact number, Judson 26405. This is Stan Bernard Contact. You're on the air.
Hello?
Yes.
Malcolm, I'd like to ask you whether you feel that the recent action of the Gaullist government in refusing you entry into France is in any way inconsistent with France's general policy towards the Afro-Asian community and Africa in particular.
Yes, I dispatched a wire to Dean Rusk, the Secretary of State here today, demanding an investigation into the reason why the French government could ban an American citizen and no reaction come from the American embassy whatsoever. But I might point out, I was in Paris last November and was successful in organizing a good organization, which another one that Dr. Hall over here can investigate in his capacity, in the American Negro community in Paris. And they have been working in conjunction with the African community, and it was the African community and the Afro-American community in Paris that invited me there to address a mass rally. And the French government permitted my entry into that country. And I might point out that it was the communist trade union workers in Paris that refused to let them have the hall initially, blocked their attempt to get the second hall, and eventually exercised influence in the French government to stop it. With the communist trade union workers, one of the largest unions in that country. And the reason I was in London, I had been invited there to attend the first Congress that had been given by the Council of African Organizations, who had a 4-day Congress, invited me to make the closing address because they were interested in the struggle of the black man in this country in his quest for human dignity and human rights.
Okay, we're going to move on to our next call. This is Contact. You're on the air.
Hello?
Yeah.
See, I don't know what happened, but somewhere along the line, you know what I'm saying, the connection to brothers in America and brothers in Africa got severed because, you know, brothers like Malcolm and others was trying to connect with our brothers and sisters from Africa to try to get them on the same page. But I don't know what happened. I don't know who to play ball, but somewhere along the line, things got changed. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if after Brother Malcolm got assassinated, that sent a message, don't play ball. But it seems like to me there was a greater play going on, that if you could get brothers and sisters from America and our brothers and sisters from Africa on the same page, oh my God.
Yeah.
May I speak to Malcolm X, please?
Yes, go right ahead.
I would like to, I don't have a question for Malcolm X. I would like to tell him that I am 100% with him for whatever he goes along with to helping the Negroes. And I think it's an awful shame that anyone should bomb or throw a bomb into a house where there's human beings, particularly children. And I don't go along at all with the Muslim, so-called Muslims at all, because to me they're only teaching hate.
Well, I confess that I was one of the leaders in projecting the Muslim movement and causing so many people to believe in the distorted version of Islam.
Now, see, that's the change that and accountability that Brother Malcolm took for his previous positions on things relating to his beliefs. And you have to allow a human being to grow and to change. You have to. You can't just say you're just one way and you're stuck that way. So you have to allow a person to change. And credit to Malcolm for understanding that he needed to change. Certain things happened where he felt that he has to change. And I applaud him for that.
Islam that is taught there, but at the same time, I have to point out that there are some progressive elements, right-meaning persons in the Black Muslim movement. All of them are not wrong. There are many in there who mean well, but are just being misled by the hierarchy, many of which do not mean well. But there is a large progressive element within the movement, and usually they are the ones who come in, they stay a year, and they get disillusioned, and they go back out. But I was responsible for giving the people the impression that the Black Muslim movement was more than what it is, and I take that responsibility. You can put the complete blame upon me, but at the same time that I take that responsibility, I want to point out that no white man or white group or agency can use me against Elijah Muhammad or against the Black Muslim movement. When you hear me open up my mouth against another black man, no white man can put words in my mouth, nor no white man can sick me on another black group. When I have analyzed the man and the group with my own understanding and feel that it is detrimental to the interest of the black community, then I'm going to attack it with that same intensity.
Now, see, that's a logical explanation of how his thought process was. A lot of people discredited him, tried to discredit him for that. But even one such as great as Malcolm X is allowed to change. You're allowed to change your thought process in the great country we live in the United States of America. You know, it's a goddamn shame that this is what they do to our leaders when they try to speak the truth to the people. Can't beat them on their ideas, so you unalive them.
Gordon, you were going to say
Well, again,
something.
as you know, it's more words, and he began by saying that he has to confess that he was responsible for misleading so many people on the Muslim count. There were never very many Muslims. Let's always come back to the fact that not very many people were ever misled. The white press was misled into believing there were a lot of Muslims.
Dr. Hall.
There were never more than 15,000 Muslims in America, and there are only now 6,000, and we have 22 million Negroes in the United States. Keep these facts uppermost in one's mind.
Well, you said it. You admitted this at the very beginning, Malcolm. You said the 15.
Now, see, what they tried to do was discredit the power. Okay, if it was 15,000 Muslims in that country at that time, they tried to discredit the power that them 15,000 Muslims had over the rest of the country. That was influencing a lot of things. So they tell you it wasn't really, it wasn't nothing. But if it wasn't nothing, why did they take them out?
Figure is correct.
Here's another fact.
These are facts, Malcolm.
Here's another fact you have to keep in mind. There never were many Mau Mau. There never were. There were always more Kikuyu, more Kenyans than Mau Mau.
What is this supposed to prove?
But it was the Mau Mau who brought independence to Kenya.
Yes, but
And the man who was regarded as an extremist and a monster just 5 years ago, Jomo Kenyatta, is the president of the Republic of Kenya today. And it is this same man who 5 years ago...
The situation in colonial Africa is not like it is in the United States.
Well, this is colonial. Anytime you have a system in 1965 that will take children and let them be marched down the road by not criminal elements.
In numbers, you have to draw one big analogy. In the United States, the Negro is still a minority in the United States. And when you're talking about minorities within minorities, you start boiling it.
They love that one. Minority. That's why I reject that term, minority. You can say what you want to say about the numbers, but it's a psychological thing to tell you you are inferior. Minority, you're the minority. Okay, if you wiped out most of our population, yeah, we're going to be the minority. But spare me that. I'll walk with my head high when I'm around white people. I don't have no minority complex within me, nor should you. Black people, you come from greatness. Believe that. It's about high time you start acting accordingly. And know that.
You can't really draw that analogy of a colony.
I say this, that the Mau Mau was also a minority, a microscopic minority, but it was the Mau Mau who not only brought independence to Kenya,
within a vast Negro majority.
But it but it's still, that wick, the powder keg is always larger than the wick. The smallest thing in the powder keg is the wick. You can touch the powder all day long and nothing happens. It's the wick that you touch that sets the powder off.
I think it'll blow up.
It's the wick that you touch that sets the powder off. And you go here in the house and you take all these moderate Negroes that Dr. Hall here puts the stamp of approval on and regards them as responsible. They don't explode. It's the wick. It's that small element that you refer to as nationalists and other.
You're doing all you can to encourage it, Malcolm.
Not encourage.
With your
But I'm
inflammatory and democratic subject language.
I don't encourage it. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it doesn't exist.
Don't you incite, Malcolm?
I don't think so. I don't. How are you going to incite people who are living in slums and ghettos? It's the city structure that incites. A city that continues to let people live in rat nest dens in Harlem and pay higher rent in Harlem than they pay downtown. This is what incites it. Who lets merchants outcharge or overcharge people for their groceries and their clothing and other commodities in Harlem while you pay lesser for it downtown. This is what incites it. A city that will not create some kind of employment for people who are barred from having jobs just because their skin is black. That's what incites it. Don't ever accuse a black man for voicing his resentment and dissatisfaction over the criminal condition of his people as being responsible for inciting a situation. You have to indict the society that allows these things to exist. And this is where I differ with Dr. Hall.
Well, we differ in many places, Malcolm.
This is not one of the many places, Dr. Hall, where we differ.
Well, in a sense, didn't Hitler also talk about different points of view? Didn't he say that conditions existed, and didn't he also incite people?
Well, I don't know anything about Hitler.
Yeah.
I wasn't in Germany.
Look, how they come.
I'm in America.
Don't please.
I say I wasn't in. I say I don't know anything about Hitler. I wasn't in Germany, but I have.
You know about Hitler.
Well,
though.
you can't point to Hitler and Germany behind what's going on here in America. Turn on the television tonight and see what they're doing. No. Turn on the television tonight and see what they're doing with Dr. King.
They do some of the same.
No, this is
Dr. King's methods are not
But
yours.
still, Dr. King goes along.
You couldn't do in Alabama what he is doing.
Sir,
You could not do in
you better
Alabama
pray that
what
I
he
don't
is
go
doing.
and try and do what he's doing. Anytime Dr. King, anytime Dr. King goes along with people like you,
Mm-hmm.
you should put forth more effort to keep it.
Now, this is an important part right here. Look, like people like you. Told them straight up. Back then. You know what I'm saying? And he's right about what he said. Y'all, if you hear what a brother like Dr. King was saying, you should have wanted to prop him up and help him. But we see what they did.
Him out of jail. You should put forth more effort to protect him. Then you should put forth more effort to protect the people who go along with him and display this love and this patience. If you would do more for those people and spend some of your time trying to help those people instead of trying to attack me, probably this country would be a much better place in which to live. You spend too much of your time, doctor, trying to investigate.
I rarely ever mention you, Malcolm. You're hardly worth mentioning.
You spend too much of your time, doctor, running around trying to keep track of dissatisfied black people whom you label as extremists.
Hardly.
Whereas if you would spend some of your time in these places where Dr. King is fighting, then you would make this country a better place to live in.
Malcolm, I lectured all over the state of Alabama when you had nothing to do with the Muslims.
Did you have on a white sheet? Did you have on a white sheet?
Time. Bell. Here we go. Bell. Okay, that's round 15. We just had it.
Dr. Hall, come up to the Audubon Sunday at 2 o'clock, and we'll continue it from there.
I have
Gentlemen,
important things to do.
We have to move on. Time has run out. I'd like to thank all of you for showing up tonight. Thank you very much, Gordon, Malcolm, and, of course, Aubrey Barnett.
Now, you know, it just goes to show you, man, what our people been up against for a long time. But I do think a dawn of a new time is coming for Black America. We just got to seize the moment. But I just wanted to share that video with you because I do personally love Malcolm X. I love his story. I love everything that he went through. And I just wanted to see how his mindset had changed. Everybody loves the radical Malcolm X, by any means necessary Malcolm X, but I love his mindset before he got assassinated as how he was thinking about society and our current state of being. But he was still down for the cause. And that's the most important part that people need to remember, that we're still down for the cause. But tell me what you think about this video. Like and subscribe and join the channel. And subscribe again. Thank you for tuning in. Peace. It's your boy Chris B. I'm out.